Who am I? The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the trees of Kurmanbishia as Amina adjusted the straps of her backpack. At 22 years old, she was the most organized among her group of friends from Ahmadu Bello University. Her dark eyes scanned the tree line where the dense forest began, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach despite her excitement for their planned weekend camping trip. "Amina, help me with this tent," called out Zainab, her roommate of 3 years. Zainab's usually neat hijab was slightly askew as she struggled with the pile of camping equipment. Coming, Amina hurried over, grateful for the distraction from her thoughts. She had heard the stories about Kurmanbishia, of course. Everyone in the nearby villages spoke of them in whispered tones. Tales of people entering the forest and emerging days later with no memory of who they were. But those were just stories meant to keep children from wandering too far, weren't they? Their group consisted of 8 students, all close friends since their first year. Amina, Zainab, Farouk, Bashir, Halima, Aisha, Ibrahim, and Yusuf. They had planned this camping trip for weeks, seeing it as their last adventure together before final exams and eventual graduation would scatter them across Nigeria. "I still think we should have gone to Yankari Game Reserve instead," grumbled Bashir as he helped Ibrahim unload supplies from their rented van. Tall and lanky, Bashir had always been the cautious one in their group. Farouk, their self-appointed leader and the one who had suggested this location, laughed heartily. "Where's your sense of adventure, my friend? This is much more exciting than some tourist spot." His confident voice carried across their makeshift campsite, but Amina noticed how his eyes kept darting toward the deeper parts of the forest. Halima and Aisha were setting up their cooking area, the familiar smell of suya spices already wafting through the air as they prepared dinner for the group. "My grandmother used to tell stories about this forest," Halima mentioned, her voice dropping slightly. "She said it holds secrets older than Nigeria itself." "All forests have secrets," Yusuf replied with a dismissive wave of his hand. As their resident science student, he preferred logical explanations to folklore. "The only thing we need to worry about is making sure we don't get lost." As the sun began to set, they gathered around the campfire, the flames casting dancing shadows on their faces. The forest seemed to grow denser and darker beyond their circle of light. Amina found herself sitting between Zainab and Ibrahim, drawing comfort from their familiar presence. "Let me tell you why I really chose this spot," Farouk began, his voice taking on a storyteller's cadence. The others leaned in, even Bashir setting aside his skepticism for the moment. "3 months ago, my cousin's friend came here with his family. They were supposed to stay for 2 days. When they finally emerged, it was 5 days later, and none of them remembered anything about their time here. Not just their time in the forest. They couldn't remember their own names, their relationships to each other, nothing." "That's impossible," Yusuf interjected, but Aisha shushed him. "They recovered most of their memories eventually," Farouk continued, "but there was always something missing. Like pages torn from a book, you can still read the story, but you know something's not there anymore." A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness beyond their camp, making everyone jump. Nervous laughter followed, but Amina noticed how they all drew closer to the fire. "We should set up a watch rotation," Ibrahim suggested practically. "Not because of any mysterious forces," he added quickly, seeing Yusuf about to protest, "but because we're in unfamiliar territory." They agreed to take 2-hour shifts throughout the night, with Ibrahim and Amina taking the first watch. As the others retired to their tents, Amina sat with Ibrahim near the fire, both of them trying to keep their eyes on the darkness beyond rather than on each other. They had dated briefly in their second year, and while things hadn't worked out romantically, there was still a comfortable familiarity between them. "Do you really believe the stories?" Amina asked softly, not wanting to wake the others. Ibrahim was quiet for a long moment. "I believe there are things we don't understand," he finally replied. "My father always says that just because something can't be explained doesn't mean it isn't real." The night grew deeper, and with it came a strange stillness. The usual forest sounds, insects, birds, small animals, seemed muted, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. When Zainab and Bashir came to relieve them, Amina was grateful to head to her tent, though sleep proved elusive. She woke to screaming. Bursting from her tent, Amina found chaos in the early morning light. Halima was the one screaming, looking at them all with wide, terrified eyes. "Who are you people?" she shrieked, backing away from the group. "Where am I? What's happening?" Aisha rushed forward to comfort her friend, but Halima recoiled. "Don't touch me, I don't know you." "Halima, it's me, Aisha. We've been friends since secondary school." Aisha's voice broke with confusion and hurt, but Halima just kept shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't remember. I don't remember anything. Who's Halima? Is that me?" The group watched in horror as their friend struggled with her own identity. Farouk turned pale, his earlier bravado completely gone. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "The stories, they weren't supposed to be real." Amina felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. She reached for her own memories, suddenly terrified they might slip away like water through her fingers. But everything was still there, her childhood in Kano, her parents' faces, her first day at university, everything that made her who she was. "We need to get her out of here," Ibrahim said firmly, taking charge of the situation. "Pack up camp, we're leaving." But as they began to gather their things, Yusuf suddenly stopped, looking confused. What was I doing?" he asked, staring at the tent pole in his hands as if he'd never seen one before. "No," Amina whispered. No. One by one, she watched as confusion spread across her friends' faces. Zainab stopped in the middle of rolling up her sleeping bag, looking lost. Bashir stood frozen, his eyes vacant. Only Amina, Ibrahim, and Aisha seemed unaffected, watching in horror as their friends' memories slipped away like morning mist. "What's happening to them?" Aisha sobbed, clutching Amina's arm. "I don't know," Amina replied, her mind racing. "But we need to figure it out before it happens to us, too." The forest around them seemed to pulse with an ancient, patient malevolence, as if it knew that it had all the time in the world to claim their memories, one by one, until nothing remained but empty shells where their friends used to be. And somewhere in the depths of Kurmin Bishia, something stirred, awakening to the presence of fresh memories ripe for the taking. The morning descended into chaos as Amina, Ibrahim, and Aisha tried to manage their amnesiac friends. Halima had curled into a ball, rocking back and forth and muttering to herself. Yusuf wandered aimlessly around the campsite, picking up objects and examining them as if seeing them for the first time. Zainab, Bashir, and Farouk sat together, their eyes vacant, occasionally asking each other questions that broke Amina's heart. "Do you know who I am?" Farouk asked Zainab for the third time in an hour. "No," Zainab replied, her voice small and lost. "Do you know who you are?" I don't remember." Ibrahim pulled Amina and Aisha aside, his voice low and urgent. "We need a plan. We can't stay here, but we can't leave them like this either." "The van," Aisha suggested. "If we can get them to the van, we can drive them to a hospital." But when they looked toward where they had parked the previous day, all three felt their hearts sink. The van was gone. "That's impossible," Ibrahim muttered, running to the spot where it had been. "The keys were in my tent. I had them right." He patted his pockets, then looked up with growing horror. "I can't remember where I put them." Amina felt panic rising in her throat, but forced it down. They needed to think clearly. "Okay," she said, taking a deep breath. "Okay, we need to stay calm. There has to be an explanation for all of this, and if there's an explanation, there's a solution. Look." Aisha suddenly pointed into the forest. Through the trees, they could see what looked like the glint of metal, perhaps their van. "We should check it out," Ibrahim said, but Amina grabbed his arm. "We can't leave them," she gestured to their confused friends, "and we can't take them with us. They're in no state to walk through the forest." "I'll stay with them," Aisha offered. "You two go, but please be careful." Amina and Ibrahim packed small bags with water and their phones, though they'd lost signal as soon as they'd entered the forest the previous day. As they prepared to leave, Amina felt a tug on her sleeve. It was Zainab, her best friend, looking at her with childlike confusion. "Are you going somewhere?" Zainab asked. "We'll be right back," Amina promised, fighting back tears. "Just stay here with Aisha, okay?" Aisha? Zainab tested the name. "Is she my friend?" "Yes," Amina choked out. "She's your friend. We all are." As they walked into the forest, Amina felt as if invisible eyes were watching their every move. The trees seemed to grow denser with each step, their branches intertwining overhead until only occasional beams of sunlight penetrated the canopy. "Tell me something about yourself," Ibrahim said suddenly. "What?" "Tell me something. Anything. We need to keep our memories active. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe if we keep talking about who we are, we won't forget." Amina nodded, understanding. "My name is Amina Yakubu. I was born in Kano. My father is a teacher. My mother sells fabric in the market. I have 2 younger brothers, Hamza and—" She stopped walking, her blood running cold. "Ibrahim," she whispered. "I can't remember my other brother's name." Ibrahim grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Focus, Amina. Think about your family. Think about your home." She closed her eyes, concentrating. "Hamza and Kabir. His name is Kabir." She opened her eyes, relief flooding through her. "It's starting to happen to us too, isn't it?" "We won't let it," Ibrahim said firmly. "Keep talking. Tell me about your childhood." They continued through the forest, taking turns sharing memories, holding on to their identities like lifelines. The glint of metal they'd seen seemed to always stay just out of reach, leading them deeper into the forest. After what felt like hours, they came to a clearing. In the center stood not their van, but an old, rusted car, its windows broken and its body nearly consumed by vegetation. It looked as if it had been there for decades. "Look at this," Ibrahim called, wiping grime from the license plate. "The registration sticker is from 1985. Someone else came here," Amina realized, "and they never left." They searched the car, finding a leather bag in the back seat. Inside was a journal, its pages yellow with age. Amina began to read aloud. "Day 1. We came to Kermanbishia to study the local folklore. The university grant should last us 3 months. Dr. Abdullahi says we're on the verge of discovering something unprecedented." She flipped through the pages, reading excerpts. "Day 15. The memory loss isn't random, it's targeted. The forest takes what matters most first: names, relationships, the connections that make us human. Day 23. We found the center. Everything makes sense now. The patterns, the symbols, the stories. But I'm forgetting. Even as I write this, I'm forgetting. If you find this, remember. The trees remember what we forget. The answers are in the roots." The final entry was just one line, written in shaky handwriting. "Who am I?" "Ibrahim," Amina said slowly. "Look at the trees." Now that they were paying attention, they could see that the trees weren't random. They formed a pattern, their trunks creating concentric circles around the clearing. And carved into each trunk were symbols, ancient, weathered, but clearly deliberate. "The answers are in the roots," Ibrahim repeated. He knelt down, brushing away years of fallen leaves near the base of the nearest tree. "Amina, help me dig." They used sticks and their hands, digging around the roots of the tree. As they dug deeper, the symbols on the trunk seemed to pulse with a faint light, or perhaps it was just their imagination. Suddenly, Ibrahim's hand hit something solid. They cleared away more dirt, revealing a small stone box, its surface covered in the same symbols as the trees. "Should we open it?" Amina asked. Before Ibrahim could answer, they heard a scream in the distance, from the direction of their camp. "Aisha," they said in unison. They ran back through the forest, Ibrahim clutching the stone box. The trees seemed to shift around them, making it difficult to find their way. Amina's head began to swim, memories slipping away even as she tried to hold on to them. "Keep talking," Ibrahim shouted as they ran. "What's your name?" "Amina. I'm Amina." "Where were you born?" "Kano, in..." She stumbled, both physically and mentally. I can't remember the hospital. Ibrahim, I can't remember. They burst into their campsite to find it empty. Their tents were still there, their supplies scattered about, but their friends were gone. Aisha, Ibrahim called out. Zainab, Farouk. Only the forest answered, its leaves rustling with what sounded almost like laughter. The box, Amina said. Open it. Whatever's happening, the answers have to be in there. Ibrahim set the box on a fallen log and carefully lifted the lid. Inside was a single piece of paper, so old it seemed it might crumble at a touch. On it was a map, drawn in faded ink, showing a series of concentric circles with a structure at its center. A temple, Amina breathed. There's an ancient temple at the heart of the forest. But where are the others? Ibrahim asked, looking around desperately. We can't just… He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes going wide. Amina, why are we in the forest? What's happening? No, Amina gasped. No, Ibrahim, fight it. Your name is Ibrahim Musa. You're studying engineering at Ahmadu Bello University. Your father runs a bookshop in Kaduna, remember? But Ibrahim's eyes were already glazing over, the same vacant look she'd seen in their other friends taking over his features. I don't… Amina grabbed the map with trembling hands. She could feel her own memories beginning to fade around the edges, like a photograph left too long in the sun. She had to find the temple. She had to save her friends. She had to remember. But who were her friends? And why did she need to save them? The forest whispered around her, and with each whisper, another memory slipped away. Amina stood alone in the clearing, clutching the ancient map in her shaking hands. Her mind felt like a sieve, memories trickling away faster with each passing moment. She forced herself to focus on the basics. My name is Amina, she whispered fiercely. I came here with friends. They're lost. I need to find them. Friends. She couldn't remember their faces anymore, but she knew they existed. She knew they mattered. That would have to be enough. The map showed a clear path to the temple, marked by those strange symbols she'd seen on the trees. With every step deeper into the forest, another memory faded. Her mother's smile, the sound of her father's laugh, the name of her childhood street. Yet she pressed on, repeating her mantra, I am Amina. I must find them. The forest grew thicker, the trees pressing closer together as if trying to block her path. The symbols carved into their trunks seemed to glow faintly in the dimming light. Was it getting dark already? Or had she been walking for hours? Time, like her memories, seemed to slip through her fingers. Something moved in the undergrowth ahead. A figure stumbled between the trees, someone she should know. Wait, she called out, her voice hoarse. The figure turned, and she saw it was a young man with vacant eyes. Do I know you? He asked, his voice uncertain. Something about him tugged at her remaining memories. Ibrahim. His name was Ibrahim. Yes, she said softly. We're friends. We came here together. Here? He looked around as if seeing the forest for the first time. Where is here? Who am I? Amina's heart ached. Your name is Ibrahim. You're studying engineering. You love books because your father owns a bookshop. Please, try to remember. But Ibrahim just shook his head, confusion clouding his features. I can't. A rustling sound drew their attention. More figures emerged from the trees, 5 of them, moving like sleepwalkers. With a jolt, Amina realized they were her other friends, though their names now escaped her. A girl in a hijab, a tall, lanky boy, 2 girls holding hands, another boy with an empty smile. Follow me, she told them, her voice stronger than she felt. I know where we need to go. They followed her without question, like lost children. The map led them deeper into the heart of the forest, where the trees grew so close together that they had to walk single file through narrow gaps between their ancient trunks. Finally, they emerged into a vast circular clearing. At its center stood what remained of an ancient temple, crumbling stone walls covered in vines and more of those glowing symbols. The air here felt different, heavy with age and secrets. What is this place? Asked the girl in the hijab. Zainab, Amina suddenly remembered. Her name was Zainab. Before she could answer, the symbols on the temple walls began to pulse with a stronger light. A voice echoed through the clearing, not a sound, but words forming directly in their minds. "You have come seeking what was lost," the voice said. It was ancient and somehow familiar, like a half-remembered lullaby. "But do you understand the price of remembrance?" Amina stepped forward. "What price?" "Memories are power," the voice responded. "For centuries, this forest has been their keeper. Those who enter must choose, surrender their memories to the forest's keeping, or take on the burden of becoming a keeper themselves." Images flooded Amina's mind, generations of wanderers entering the forest, their memories feeding its power. Some chose to stay, becoming one with the forest, helping it grow stronger. Others left empty, their memories preserved in the roots and branches, feeding the ancient magic. "The choice must be made," the voice continued. "One must become a keeper for the others to remember." Amina looked at her friends, their confused faces, their lost expressions. She thought of all they had to return to, families, dreams, futures. Even though she could barely remember her own life now, she knew what she had to do. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "I'll become a keeper." "No!" The shout came from Ibrahim. Something had flickered in his eyes, a spark of recognition. "Amina, don't. I remember you." But Amina had already stepped toward the temple. The symbols began to glow brighter, their light encompassing her. She felt knowledge flowing into her mind, the forest's secrets, its purpose, its power. She understood now. The forest wasn't malevolent, it was a guardian, protecting memories too powerful or dangerous to be left in the world. As the light grew blinding, she saw her friends' eyes clearing. Recognition dawned on their faces as their memories returned. They remembered who they were, why they had come, everything they had lost, everything except Amina. To them, she would become just another story about the forest, a tale of a girl who led them to safety, but whose name they couldn't quite recall. And that was okay. She had a new purpose now, a new identity. She was the keeper of memories, the guardian of forgotten things. The light faded. Her friends stood at the edge of the forest, their memories restored, with no recollection of how they had gotten there. They would return to their lives, graduate, pursue their dreams. And here in Kurmin Bishia, among the ancient trees and eternal secrets, Amina would remain, watching, remembering, keeping safe the memories of all who entered her domain. For in the forest of forgotten memories, nothing is truly lost. It is merely waiting to be remembered again. Years later, a group of students would tell stories about the mysterious forest where memories go to hide. They would speak of a presence there, not malevolent but watchful. Some claimed they caught glimpses of a young woman in the depths of the woods, her eyes filled with centuries of memories. And on quiet nights, when the moon hung low over the trees, those who listened carefully might hear a voice on the wind, whispering stories of all that was forgotten, keeping alive the memories that the world could not hold. And so the forest remained, a sanctuary for lost memories, its secrets guarded by the keeper who had once been named Amina, the girl who chose to remember so others could forget.
Write the word "continue" in the comment section if you want the next part, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. Kindly click the subscribe button, like, comment, and share this video. Watch out for more intriguing and eye-catching videos from your favorite YouTube channel.